The babies are never difficult. They are solution finders with mother. But mother didn't know she was holding tension half the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then she didn't know what to do about it.
Hi everyone and welcome back to No Place Like Home. I am Larissa and I'm here with my co-host Jess.
Hello.
And we are blessed to have the amazing Fiona back. If you haven't listened to the previous episode with Fiona, I highly encourage you to go back because Fiona is a wealth of knowledge and experience and it is, I thoroughly enjoyed that episode. Thank you, Fiona. We are going to talk today, however, about nurturing pelvic wellness. I don't think it's something that's talked enough about, and we've had a few little chats off air about lots of different things. But let's kind of just talk about how you got into holistic bodywork, and for people who don't know or will be new to the concept, what that is, in general terms, and then if there's more specific things that you feel like we should go into.
No worries. Well, when I did finish my mid in 1990, probably so many of the midwives would have heard this before, but it's just the only story that's how it rolls, really. I went to a workshop and I saw it advertised, and it was called Pregnancy Bodywork. And I went to this workshop. It was at the Angus Hospital. It was a wet winter's day, and I get there, and this absolute Fruit Loop hippie of a woman called Wintergreen.
Oh, yes.
Oh, well, that is quintessential.
Oh, absolutely. And that's her name, lock, stock and smoke and barrel, let me tell you, Wintergreen. She gave this workshop, and she was very unusual. And I remember I was so proud of being a midwife. Like, you got your ticket to practice, and everything in my life was birth. Everything was birth. Oh, God, I was a sucker. And so Wintergreen taught this workshop, and it was about the pelvis. And I remember thinking, oh, God almighty, I know nothing. It was like she made it become alive for me, gave me a new insight. And I don't remember learning much else that day except that her hand on my sacrum felt like a warm hunk of magic, and that she awakened that love of the sacrum in the pelvis. And the other thing was that I knew jack shit. So I kept hanging out with her and going to more workshops, and each time another little piece would drop, another little piece, and I'd start taking different techniques and different work back to my workplace, which was in the private sector.
And was this external work or internal work?
External pelvic work, and using it, and it resonated with the women, and they wanted more, and people started seeing it was making a difference. So I got confidence, and I do this and I do that. It was all a bit. I was curious. I was experimenting with women's permission, of course, at birth, and it was making big impact with different stuck situations. We became friends, Wintergreen and I hung with her a lot. And she taught me also another piece of her work was internal vaginal massage. And she herself, she was a very creative body worker in her own right. She was not a midwife, but she'd attended a lot of births because she'd lived in many different communities in the US, religious communities, Indigenous communities and so on. One of these communities, she nutted out a way of working with the soft tissues of the birth canal so that women didn't have to turn up to hospital with trauma asking for help like stitches and stuff. Because home birth in some of these areas of the US way back when was illegal. And so they couldn't risk being prosecuted. So she thought, right, how are we going to help this? So this is the creative mind of this woman, and I'll be forever grateful for her sharing it. So she taught me on my body, and then I practiced on her body, and I was deeply vulnerable. And then from there, I didn't do a lot with it for a while because I was too embarrassed. What would people think of me? My ego got in the way.
That's crazy to me to think that now, like to think that you would ever be embarrassed of
I
your entire world.
God almighty, yeah. Now it's just everything, you know. Yeah. All of a sudden you then you start getting called the vagina whisperer of Melbourne. It's like, oh, good God. And I'm saying the nice title. You can imagine the other one.
Oh, I don't know. You have to tell me
don't
when
worry.
we're not recording.
Yeah, I won't say that on here. Anyway, I morphed it, and as I got more confident and more experiences and situations came my way, I'd go, well, what if and maybe and could we? And I studied more myself, and then I learnt holistic body work about how to work with touch, how to work with release work, how to do trigger work. And that started to translate into the internal pelvic work as well. I learnt different traumatic work from, somatic sort of stuff and this, that and the other. But it was really just about being curious and translating that work to the outside and the inside of the pelvis.
Wow.
And so when did you go from mostly midwifery to mostly pelvic work? Where was the transition?
Midwifery, well, I was always doing the work all along my career.
Yeah.
At different times. And then even when I was in private practice, it was part of my care package. I always, at 32 weeks, said, I'll be teaching you this work. If you don't want to learn it, okay, but if you'd like to try to avoid forceps vacuum or being cut or tears, I'll share. And women go, yeah, I want that knowledge.
Yeah.
So does that form part of what you call the holistic body work?
Yeah.
So for people that are curious or, we'll put all of your details of how people can contact you. But for those people that are listening and say, oh, holistic bodywork, that sounds like something I would like to do. Is that specifically the pelvic health that you're talking about now? Yeah. Okay.
There's outside work, as I said, you can do. There's different sequencing work. You can work on the pelvis externally. And of course the pelvis is just the middle part to the top of the bottom and the bottom of the bottom of the body. So you've got everything coming in and leaving. So it's often a lot of other stuff as well. But the bulk of it is then inside. And, as women, we are so lucky to have a portal of entry into this sacred world via the vagina. It's just a wonder world in there. It's like going into space. It's like, okay, there's no signpost. It gets a bit tricky at times. But you're sort of like, you learn pelvic braille.
I've always wondered how, even with midwives, I'm like, how can you touch a belly and know where the baby is? That blows my mind. And so you're going in even more blind when you're doing
it's sensitivity,
work.
and your hands get more and more sensitive, but you just get a little bit more savvy and a little bit more courageous and curious, and everything's done with permission, with consent, with movement. How does that feel? What do you think? Could I? Should I? What about that? It's all done like that, Yeah.
And so for people who are listening who have never heard of this before, again, we love introducing new concepts. What would be your role for a pregnant or a postpartum person? Like someone comes to see you at the pelvic space, if you do an internal pelvic release.
Yeah.
Talk us through it.
Well, every session's 2 hours. And people go, ooh, that's a lot, yeah, okay, non-negotiable to me.
Yeah.
Because a big part of a particular woman who's healing from birth, but often a woman who's preparing for birth, she may have had another experience, but inevitably women don't just come having a baby, they come with a whole life. And women who come with prolapse issues also come with a life. There's stories, and often these women have never been listened to. They've never been heard, or they've never had the courage to talk to someone about it, or they've always felt too damn foolish because they didn't know enough about their body. And I didn't know either. I didn't know either. I was 16 as the last time I said when my mother had her last baby, or maybe said to you separately, and I grew up with a great family, but I grew up with an Irish Catholic father who used to say there'll be no white weddings if there's any pregnancies. And you used to think it would be handy to know how to get pregnant, Pop. Because we weren't told.
Yeah.
So we weren't told enough about our body, and women aren't told enough, and all we're told what we should be doing, how our pelvic muscles should be tight, and all that we should be damn well doing. But nobody's told women how that affects, where they join into, what can be the consequence. I mean, even for you two sitting here, did anyone tell you how to do a proper pelvic muscle tightening? You're just told to damn well do them and do oodles of them as well.
Yeah. I'm
Do
doing
them till you're blue in the face.
doing it now, but I don't even know if I'm doing it right.
There you go. And so what you find is this big hunks of ignorance, and women don't know where to go, and so women sit with a whole lot of vulnerabilities around unknowns, and humiliation is a very awful thing, and it stops us asking questions
And getting the help.
And then if you throw shame in there, shame is a killer for women and sexuality. And it comes with indoctrinations from schooling, from religion. And it's a real nasty one, shame.
Fiona, tell us about your business, the pelvic space.
Well, so I was always offering these sessions, and then it was COVID, and I was also doing maternal child health, and
right.
and then I left that to do other permanently. I was doing casual work, but then I was in a centre for quite a while. But I was always doing the internal work, and then it sort of came to a point where there was a job on offer in maternal child health, and there was sort of this pocket of security on offer again to have this regular income. And it was like a moment, a crossroads again. Do I take it or do I just throw caution to the wind? And so I didn't take it. And then it was like something exploded, and the demand for women to have care, because no one else was doing much care during COVID, because everything was shut down and there was a truckload of fear in the world, it exploded. And there's a mate of mine in Yamundi, Andrea, who's a magnificent body worker, and she's what's called a Mayan abdominal massage practitioner. So she does a whole lot of pelvic work. And we taught her the work years ago. Well, we did work on her, and she, with her body knowledge, she morphed it into her own way. And I rang Andrea and I said, Darl, I got vaginas to the left of me and vaginas to the right. And she goes, honey, I'm knee deep in them. What are we going to do? I said, I'm getting on a plane. You get Jen, who's another mate who knows some of the work. And I said, I'm coming up, I'm staying at your place, and we're going to work out a teaching program, because this is so needed for so many women for so many reasons, and we've got to get more people doing it. I said, I can't bear women having to travel to me. This is it upsets me that they're driving so far, or they're coming down from Sydney to see me. They're coming 3 hours, 4 hours, and it's like, oh, this is nuts. Let's get women in their own community sharing this information with them. And so we ran the first teaching program in 22. They did it up in, Jen and Andrea did it up in Yamundi on the Sunshine Coast. I did in Melbourne. I ran it again last year, and I've got it this year, and they're doing another year. So we're hoping to get more practitioners out there, so women have got a carer in their own community.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
that's when I thought, right, it needs a name, and it needs a little bit of formalising so women can find us, not just me.
Yeah.
It's not about me anymore, and there's only one of me, and everyone's going to have their different style in sharing information and their different way of communicating, and their, and yes, some of them are, say to me, oh, but Fee, we don't, but the practitioners, midwives. There's been a variety of practitioners who have learnt from me, midwives, osteos, chiros, doulas, body workers.
So that's what I was going to ask you, Fiona. How do you differ from a pelvic floor physio?
Oh, quite greatly.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it's because, this is new to me, and then I've been sort of thinking, okay, well, I know of pelvic floor physios, so I think it's really important that we articulate the difference.
Yeah, for sure. Well, physios focus on muscles, but there's other things in the pelvis. There are ligaments and there's fascia and there's connections with the organs and the fibres outside of the pelvis. And that might just scoot through the pelvis a little bit, just show a little bit their face for a second, like the psoas muscle. But they can have a big influence on birth. The physios don't give women the time. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. They can take it as that if they like, but it's just fact. They're not giving women time. And they're coming from a very clinical diagnostic perspective. So when last year, and I hope the 2 physios that were part of the group last year, magnificent women, on the second module, I hope they don't mind, the second module I had to pull them up and say, listen, ladies, in this work, we don't see patients and we don't give treatments. We work with women and we offer care. And if you can't get your head around the language, I'm going to give you your money back and ask you to move on. Because there is a fundamental difference in the energy that is translated and exchanged between us and a woman who comes through our door, who's never met us before, who finds the courage to take her undies off to a stranger after she's had a good anatomy explanation of what we can find, what we can do, after we have shown her and felt for her with the experience that she's brought through the door. Not only is she brought through the door maybe a hard birth, a traumatic birth, but every second, third woman's been abused. She's been raped or fingered or you name it. Every one of them. Sometimes they don't talk about it and sometimes they do. And it's profound. It's absolutely profound, and they need to be held with the deepest love and respect and compassion.
Yeah, so...
And you can't do that in a 25-minute, 20-minute consult.
Yeah, it's vastly different.
You need time. And then you need time to take the time with the tissues, because the tissues of the body have often got into a pickle because they got bullied. And bullying is not the way out. Loving is the way out, and sometimes that takes time and tenderness. Yes, sometimes it's a strong contact and a strong holding, but each time you're going in with the intention, I'll do to you, body, what you want me to do. I am not going to dictate and tell you what's necessary. You are going to guide me. And that is not the attitudinal approach from many other professions. They're coming in as the expert.
Yeah.
They're coming in as
thinking they know your body better than you do.
Yes. Yeah. They're coming in to diagnose. They're coming in to critique. Your muscles are too tight. Your muscles are too loose. Your muscles are over tight. You've not been doing enough. You've been doing too much.
Constant criticism.
Rather than... It's like, even for me, you do work on the belly if the woman's having a babe. If you can't, from my viewpoint, it's, as a midwife, I love feeling babies still, and if women allow me to, but I don't feel the baby through the womb until I've relaxed the muscles over the womb, because then the baby stands out really easy and you get to play and the mother gets to have a sigh. And when you sigh, everything's easier. And so then you feel those babies and you take your time with the child and go, are you comfortable, Angel, or you're not? Sometimes babies aren't in comfortable positions. So then you're working to try to educate the woman how to help release tension in her own body so the baby can move to the path of freedom.
Fascinating.
And see, our world, it just does another thing. Our world makes out that these children, when we get into pickles in birth, are problems. You know, midwives will frequently use, I did it myself, use terms cheeky Charlie, stubborn shit, naughty boy in birth. This baby's naughty. Look at that baby, naughty. It's rotating the other way. It's tilted its head. What a naughty child. What a little shit. No, the kid's a solution finder. The babies are never difficult. They are solution finders with mother. But mother didn't know she was holding tension half the time. And then she didn't know what to do about it. And so the work that we do in the pelvic space is to help educate a woman. So it's sometimes about doing release work, but also teaching her about a technique called directed breathing that she can take into life, she can take into her birth. It's about working with women with droops or vulnerabilities of prolapse in their tissues afterwards, how the well woman's walk, how to use binders to support the pelvis, the pelvic bones, to talk to the support crew, to talk to the organs. So it's a much more holistic approach.
So I had really, really intense pain in my pelvic. I always forget what it's called here because in Germany it's opposite. So symphysis pubis or pubis symphysis. Which one is it here?
Either.
Okay, well, both pregnancies, to the point where I would walk 100 metres and I'd be in so much pain. It was worse faster the second time.
Yeah.
First time it was only in the last sort of 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Second time it was from about 3 months.
Yeah.
Is that something that if I'd known about you and come and seen you, would you have been able to help with that?
Yeah, we try to do work with that.
Because I did have one of those. I went to a physio, of course, and I had one of those. She gave me one of those belts, but didn't really help. But I probably wasn't doing it right.
Well, why would you say that, love?
Oh, I don't know.
Why would you not have been doing it right? It may not have been right for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Who would benefit from your services, Fiona? So is it something solely that is done in pregnancy and birthing, or like, because I'm thinking, well, I'm like 11 years postpartum now, nearly 9 years my last one, but I'm like, I could do with some
Zhuzhen up.
zhuzhen, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. We get women of all ages and all conditions.
Yeah.
I get work done now and I'm 26, 24 years post-birth and I'm 60. All sorts.
Yeah,
Women
okay.
in
So it's not exclusive to
No.
being pregnant or, yeah, okay.
Recently I've worked with a woman she'd come from Sydney before and I was in Sydney and I saw her again in her early 70s.
Right.
With weeing all the time at night and doing everything, but fundamentally also wanting to still have sex with her darling. Which
I
she'd
wee all
been
the
with
time at
since
night
she was
too.
15.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
And she said, I don't particularly, and sadly a women's health physio said to her, well, do you want to have sex at this age?
Oh.
And she said, not particularly, but I know it makes him so happy, so why wouldn't I want to be with him with that? But it was such a judgment by that practitioner. And the truth was she was uber tight. She was so tight. She'd been so disciplined in all she was doing that she created a lot of tension rather than tone in the fibres. And then she'd created so much tension that she couldn't even be with her darling man, let alone the weeing issue. She couldn't be with her darling man for lovemaking because it was too sore. I've worked with a lot of young women who come with endometriosis, pain, and sometimes sexual pain post-laparoscopies. Women, there's so many women, God, so many women having painful sex. It's like, gee whiz, thank God I never experienced that one. But so many women, and so many women having painful sex after things like caesareans, laparoscopies, because it messes with the balance, messes with the pressure balance in a particular fibre that the pelvic floor muscles are attached to.
That's so interesting that you say
it just
that.
flows on like that. You know, a lot of women come post-Caesar. Sex was great. Sex is painful. But I had a caesarean.
That's the thing. People think that if they have a cesarean, their pelvic floor won't be compromised.
Yeah.
But it
It
is.
messes with certain fibres. I've worked with women post-rape who then had problems. And women, senior women, sometimes the body expresses vulnerabilities that they've carried all their life and they don't show up until post-menopause when we're not so zhuzhed up. The estrogen's travelling in that downhill in a massive, V8 billy cart down the hill and the collagen's, not much better. And all of a sudden the hip issues come up, pain in the hip, and it goes back to their birth.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It goes back to there. Oh, yeah, you had that cesarean there, love, with the twins. And that could potentially, and and then you find out a few days down the track the hip pain's gone. And you go, oh, that's sensational.
This is really something, yeah. I mean, when we started this conversation, I was like, okay, this is amazing for pregnancy and birth, but in actual fact,
It's life.
Yeah, it really, really is. And also the impact on life and lifestyle, I feel like is, I'm not discrediting the effect that it has through pregnancy, but I think the effect in a positive light that it can have on that postpartum and the rest of your life is quite profound.
My dream is that I don't know when I'll ever retire, probably by the time I die, but is that we reverse who we're seeing, that the vast majority, I'd love it to be an 80-20, where 80% of the time the women coming are preparing for birth and 20% of the time they're coming to heal rather than massive healing.
You've got 80% coming to heal now.
And less prep because women don't know about it.
Yes.
But when I was in private practice as a midwife, when the women I was with, when I knew they'd done the prep work, the work to continue doing work after with the internal work, I would not expect to see a pushing phase for the first time mother going longer than 20 minutes to 30 minutes.
Wow.
And if it went longer than 30, I was thinking, what's wrong?
Whereas it's quite...
It makes a massive change
to
what the tissues, to the capacity of the tissues. You see, all we're trying to do is help a woman reach her anatomical potential. Not as she is there static, but where could she go? Where's the full potential of that pelvic space when the large passengers coming on through? Because, fundamentally birth is large object coming through small space. And so, you'd think blind Freddie would think that that's a good idea to prepare that space and to give it its best chance to let the little one come through without issue. But it's not only about that vaginal space, it's about the whole pelvic space and how many women are being told they don't have a big enough pelvis. It's rare. Like, man, it's so rare for a woman not to have a big enough space. It's rare.
Yeah.
And the bones don't move on their own. The tension's held in soft tissues, so then you get restriction of space. And when you work with the soft tissues, you get more space, and babies love it.
This is so new to me, and I'm just so fascinated, Fiona, and so grateful that we're having this conversation and that we get to have this platform to talk about these sorts of things that, I feel sitting here with you will greatly benefit so many women. It feels contradictory, we're told and have discussed in previous episodes that the body knows what to do and intervention, isn't required. But, in actual fact, that's all that seems to be happening.
Yeah, and so, many would ask, are you doing this work? Is it an intervention?
Yeah.
And I would rather to explore the topic of, are we facilitating or are we fixing? And I know there are people out there like the beautiful Rachel Reed, who says nothing should be done to prepare for birth. It's not necessary. The body's perfect. Yeah, I hear her, but the data's not showing us that.
Yeah, I mean, lifestyle plays such a big factor,
You
right?
push and pop uphill in a hospital system.
Yeah.
They don't do time. They don't like time. They don't like to give time. And you're right, the other thing is our lifestyle. It makes a very big difference on our body, how we live, how we work. And, my nana had 9 home births in Ireland. And she probably would have said, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, if you said, Nana, do you know what yoga and Pilates and CrossFit is and how to lift weights? She didn't drive.
Yeah.
There's no Netflix.
Yeah.
There's no binging. She would have had to bob up and down to put the cloth nappies through the ringer.
Yeah.
Lots of forward.
She would have done her squats getting up and down,
Yeah.
putting them on the clothesline.
Yeah.
And yes, till she was an old lady, she scrubbed the floors on her hands
Yeah.
and knees. Now, I'm not saying every woman of her generation had it easy, but our pelvises haven't changed since then.
Yeah.
Like we haven't all of a sudden had a vitamin D crisis and all got rickets and got malformed pelvises. We haven't. But we sure as heck have got very comfortable with tension.
Yeah.
And our world's got very mixed up with tension and tone. And tension's bullshit. Like, you're stuck. You can't give another bit. And our world's very focused on women having tight tits, tight asses, tight bellies, tight bums, tight everything. Everything's got to be tight.
Tight.
Yep. And so that's nice. Might look nice, but tight doesn't let the kids out.
No. By the way, I never use the word I'm saying that because it's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, she's got a tight pussy.
Yeah. It's crackers.
Gross. Yeah.
It's sad, eh?
So sad.
When they tight, they get damaged. Then they're not tight anymore.
Thank
Obviously,
you
we
so
could
much.
talk to you
I
all
know.
day.
There's so much, but
I do need to say one thing, and that
absolutely.
is that it's not just me. It's not just about me, that I do this work. There are other people that can offer it.
I know a number of people who have done your training now.
Yeah,
So,
and they're great women.
they are.
Yeah, have they been around the traps like me and all that jazz? In their own way, yes. They've all got something unique to offer.
yeah.
And so it's not just a need to see me.
Yeah.
It's a need to receive care of their pelvis.
The care, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we call Kathy Penrose Kathy Magic Hands Penrose. So we'll have to get Kathy on as well.
Yeah,
But,
she's a gorgeous
she's one of many who people can see if they can't get in with you or if they live too far away.
Yeah, Kathy's a good one.
Yeah. Well, we will get some of those references to other carers in this space so that our listeners can access people within their own communities who do the work if they're interested as well. But thank you so much, Fiona.
pleasure.
It has been eye-opening. It has been so informative, and I am really grateful to have you on. So thank you.
And listeners,
pleasure.
if you have any questions, you know what to do. Instagram us, write them in the Spotify captions, question box.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you, Fiona.
Great to talk to you.
This podcast represents the opinions of our hosts and their guest speakers. Views and opinions expressed in the podcast are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and content here should not be taken as medical or professional advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any personal recommendations and medical care. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate based on the best available information at the time of recording, we welcome any comments, suggestions or feedback via our website contact form, home.com.au/contact. Names and details of personal experiences may have been changed to allow for anonymity and privacy. To join the conversation, join us on social media at Home Postpartum.